The crazy professor is here to help you with piecing together. Did you bring your body parts today? With piecing together your stories. Now that you have your interviews and your information that you've researched, now you're going to bring it all together and piece it all together. Did you bring your body parts today? Thought we'd talk today. Now that we've talked about the other parts, the main parts of writing a press release, gathering the information, interviewing, getting good direct quotes, gathering your background, your information from your official sources, from people who benefit from the product, and other sources. Maybe you'll do some internet research. Maybe you'll get some brochures. Maybe you'll gather information from websites, from reviews of other people's comments on whatever it is. Maybe it's an event, maybe it's a product, but there are often reviews that we can obtain online or on the actual websites of the products or the events or the performers. So now you've got all of these different pieces, a finger here, a toenail here, an ear here, a nose there, a kneecap. Now we need to bring them all together into one Frankensteinian masterpiece. I know. I just thought I just couldn't be just Lise Cutshaw for this last writing video. But we do need to piece it all together. And that is something that's fairly scientific. It's not an exact science, but it's pretty scientific, the way you need to think logically about how to put all these pieces together. And you need to use the right kind of mortar to stick them all together. Elmer's glue doesn't work for that, so you can leave your Elmer's glue out there. But we need to put that toenail on the toe in the right order. And you got to get dem bones in the right order. You probably are not familiar with that old song. Dem bones, dem dry bones. No, probably don't know that one. But that's what we're going to talk about today, is how we put all these differing pieces together into a story, a news article, a press release, whatever you want to call it. So first thing that we're going to take is that very first piece that is oh so important, and I'm going to oh, look, it's dotted. I didn't mean for my lines to be dotted, but that's kind of fun. The first piece we put in there is the lead. That's your lead. We talked about it in the last video. It is the most important, most unusual aspect of whatever this product or this event is. You need to ask yourself, what is going to interest people the most, and that's going to be your lead. I won't expound on that any further because I've already done quite a bit of that. Then the next thing that you want to do, oh good, this is not dotted. So you've written your lead, and next you're going to write a bridge from the lead to your first official paragraph. Now, often the bridge is a quote that supports the lead. So if you say that this product is groundbreaking, and you probably have to put that in quotes, is a groundbreaking product that is making a difference in the lives of housewives. Do we call them that? I'm not sure if that's politically correct, but forgive me if it's not. Then in your second paragraph, you would need a bridge or a support for that particular statement and probably get a quote from your official source, maybe the mad professor or the mad scientist, but maybe just from whomever your official source is, the person who created the product or some official from the company. And then next you want your second most important information. Just as we talked about when we talked about the inverted pyramid a couple of videos ago. Then you'll have a transition of thought. These are very important, by the way. Transitions such as therefore, however, in addition to. Maybe you're going to repeat a key word and say that product or that aspect of the Brillo pads is what made such a difference. You need transitions, and I actually ought to make that a different color, shouldn't I? Maybe we make a transition yellow, because they're sort of like the mortar that holds your paragraphs of your story together. Then you're going to write, after you make the transition of thought to the new topic, the third most important information. And then as secondary information or a secondary paragraph for each of these sections of your story, you probably want to add a quote. You'll make the transitional thought in a paraphrase, which is paraphrasing something that someone official has said to you, or maybe you're just writing that transition of thought yourself in your own words with no opinion. But then you have a quote to back up that statement. Then you have a transition of thought to your next topic, and then you go to your third most important information. Then you will probably want to have a quote to back up that statement or that information. Then we'll have another transition of thought. I'm just going to write trans this time. My handwriting is so beautiful, especially on this palette. And we will just continue in that style, piecing together the differing pieces of the story. But before you can even start on putting together the body, before you can put your body parts together of this article or press release, you need to organize your thoughts. So, how do you organize your thoughts? You've done, let's say, 2 interviews, one with the creator of the product and another with someone who's going to benefit from the use of this product. And maybe you've also talked with the president of the company. The president of the company will probably only have one comment for you, and you only put that in there because they're the president of the company and they're really an official source. But they're important because they add some credibility, an additional credibility to your story. So how do you sort out your thoughts? That is a good question. I'm glad you asked me. You sort out your thoughts by, one, you probably have to transcribe your interviews and type at least what you feel like are going to be the usable quotes. Type them up into a file that you can copy and paste into your main release file. And so print those out. It won't kill you to print a couple pages of paper. And then have your background information. And if you want to print that out, sometimes I like to just lay it all out in front of me so I can organize the different parts of it. And what I'll do is I'll just take this one paragraph that I think is the most important thing of all the things that caught my attention while I was interviewing people. And I will number it 1. And then here on this other sheet of paper, I have this interview with the person who benefits from this product. And so I want to use a quote from them pretty high in the story to verify and to add credibility and to support my statement in the lead. So I'll number it number 2 in my notes. You can do this mentally. You can also number things in the actual digital file if you just absolutely hate printing out pieces of paper. Then, or maybe you just create an outline. Maybe you don't do it the old-fashioned way of actually numbering things per se on the notes, but you create an outline. And so you tell yourself, or you've read through everything, and so you go, okay, this is the most important thing I'm going to say. It's going to be my lead. Then, secondly, I'm going to have a quote from man, whoever the beneficiary is. Then third, I'm going to talk about the special aspects of the product. And then 4, I'm going to have a quote from the creator, the person who created the product in the company. Then 5, and between each of these there'll be a transition. That goes without saying, right? Our mortar that sticks it together. Then I'm going to talk about the financial benefits. You're not going to be able to read this at all. Crazy writing. And then maybe you'll have some numbers, statistics, dollar amounts are very important, especially to business type stories. And we do a lot of writing business style stories in advertising and marketing. They're not always. Some that I write for Mary B. Martin School of the Arts are quite featurey and arts and entertainment style, but many are business-like. And then number 7, maybe we have the quote from the president about how proud he or she is to be able to offer this to our customers. So you just create an outline. Now, I know that that's hard. You have to make yourself sit down and create an outline. And maybe you won't stick to it exactly. Maybe you'll get to a certain point in the story and you'll go, oh, I think that would fit perfectly here, but you didn't have it in your outline. Well, if you're like I am, you'll probably write it in because you're OCD. But your outline can lead you through your story. Much harder to write a story. It's just like writing a research paper. You really need an outline for it. It's like writing an essay. You really need an outline to organize your thoughts. So logical order is very important to what we do as writers, or else we can't get to the part of writing the lead and the bridge from the lead to the second most important information. in the transition to the third most important information if we don't know what's most important. What are people going to most want to know? Second most important, what are people secondly going to want to know? What is second most important to tell them? What is the second most striking bit of information? You really need to sit down, organize your thoughts, look at your notes, and come up with an outline. It doesn't have to be fancy with Roman numerals and A's and B's and all that. That's not important, but just a list in order of the things that you want to address. And then, as I said, if you diverge, that's okay. But then you can put it all together and come up with hopefully not a Frankenstein, not a monster, but a monstrously good piece of writing. I also wanted to tell you, while I got you today, just share with you some of the writing tips that I think are really important. And I have posted on D2L those writing tips, and I just call them Lise's release and article writing tips because they've come from years of doing that, writing releases and articles, and editing them for whatever, newspapers, PR firms, differing PR offices. So I think they're all important. There are a lot of them. I hope that you will read them. I've included some of them in your assignments as reminders, but also I just wanted to emphasize a few things. One of them is use lots of quotes. Direct quotes are going to, as I mentioned before, make your stories very credible. Be sure, though, that you use the proper quote form. And I will post also on D2L a handout about quote form to kind of refresh your memory about that. I'm sure you had it in media writing, but you are always, always safe if you attribute the quote, the direct quote, and that means identify who said it after the first sentence. And I like to sing it for my students so they remember. Where do you attribute? After the first sentence, Ricola. Where do you attribute? After the first sentence, Ricola. So remember where to attribute. That's very important. Don't wait 3 or 4 sentences into a quote to attribute, or even 2, because that causes your readers to jump ahead to figure out who's speaking. And then they may never go back and read the rest of that quote that they jumped past to find out who the speaker was. Pick one or the other. You said, he said, she said, the doctor said, Cutshaw said, Dr. Frankenstein said, or says. I think says makes things seem more lively and more present tense, but that also sounds a little more feature-y. And for very newsy releases, you probably want to use said, but just use said throughout. And don't bother with any of these other words that have other meanings to them, like stated, proclaimed, claimed, laughed, shared, thought. We don't know what they thought, by the way. Try to stay away from those kinds of attributive words. So-and-so denied, or exclaimed, or giggled, or sniggered, or just say said. I know it seems repetitious, but it sort of fades into the background. It's there. It's important to attribute everything that you do not already know. You should attribute. And that's the rule in media writing. But you don't have to use the fancy words. Pick said and use it throughout the story, so-and-so said, or pick says and use it throughout the story. Don't bounce around between the two, and you don't have to use any other words. You don't have to use noted. I see that a lot. Said or says works, and it works really well. Another thing is, I highly recommend that you let the people who are your official sources tell the story. You write the transitions between those thoughts. You frame it for the release and for the reader. You determine what you feel like is the most important information, and you lead with that. But that's why I recommend that you use quotes almost every other paragraph, because you make a statement or you give some information, then you back it up with a quote. Then you give the next most important information and you back it up with a quote. And you could also certainly paraphrase people's information. You still might attribute it to them. It's just not in direct quote form, because not everything is worthy of a direct quote. It needs to be something that is important and said in an important way if you're going to directly quote it. But let the quotes, let those people, let the speakers, your official sources, tell the story. Don't you try to tell too much. You don't have to make it too flowery. And there doesn't have to be too much of you in the story. It's probably going to be more interesting if you let them do the talking. And they're the official sources anyway. Let's see what else. You don't want to put yourself into the story as the writer. So don't use I, we, me, us, our, unless it's in direct quotes and somebody else is saying it. But don't say that I interviewed so-and-so and they said this. You want to use third person. And just tell us what they said and attribute it to them. Don't say when asked, so-and-so said this. We know that in an interview, they are being asked questions, and it brings you, the writer, into the story, and you need to stay unbiased and out of it, objective and out of the story. Even if you're a PR person or a marketing person writing a release, you still need to write it in an objective way, as if you were a member of the media, because otherwise they won't use it. If it's too biased sounding and too fluffy with lots of adjectives, it's not going to be what we call newsworthy in the news business. And you don't want them to throw away your work. You've spent time on it, you've gathered the information, you've interviewed people. So write this in third person, just as a journalist or as another kind of media writer might do. As I mentioned, opinion, your opinion, fluffy words, adjectives have no place in this story unless you are quoting someone's opinion. So your own opinion, whether you think somebody was beautiful or it was a great ceremony or it was a fantastic day, whether you think it was a tragedy or whether you think this is a miracle cure, what you think should not be in this story. It's what the other people think, and you've gathered their information. So if someone says that it was beautiful or great or a miracle or a tragedy, quote them on that. But don't put your own opinion in it. That is very unjournalistic, and good media writers don't do that. Remember the tips about not using cliches, not using jargon. You translate the jargon, which is business speak or some other kind of jargon, military speak, whatever it might be. You want to translate those things. You also want to boil down your writing. Boil it down to the lowest common denominator. Maybe some of you all are good in math, so you understand what the lowest common denominator is. Use the fewest words with the strongest meanings to transmit your information. Don't babble on. Do not pad your stories. If I give you a number of words, I know that you're going to feel like you have to fill it out, so I won't give you a number of words. I'll tell you, make this at least 2 pages double-spaced, or be sure you include at least 8 direct quotes. But I'm not going to give you a word count because I know what happens. And most of us are very wordy. So go back and reread your story. Read it out loud to yourself to see if you hit any bumps in the road, just like in TV or radio writing. Reading your own press releases can help you find the places where people will mentally stumble when they're reading it to themselves. Then you go fix those things. Smooth them out because we want their reading to be smooth without any bumps so that they'll read from beginning to end and read the whole story. So read it to yourself and find those bumps in the road. Read it to yourself and maybe find some of your typographical errors, or maybe a misspelled word, or maybe you've left out a word. That's so easy to do. But you need to be very, very careful about proofing your work. In some of the assignments that you've turned in so far, there are a number of typos, and we all make them, especially when we're typing quickly. But for an assignment, or for a press release that's going to go to media, of course, you're going to give it to your boss, and your boss is going to read it. And then maybe you have somebody else in your office like I do. Heidi, Ailey, excuse me, is my great editor, my greatest editor. But pass it around to people who will help you proof it. You want this to be the best quality product that you could possibly come up with, because you're going to turn that over to media, and you don't want them to say, oh, she's always turning in press releases with errors. Hate her work. It's so much work fixing it. And as I've mentioned before, we want the media members' jobs to be easy. We want to make their life easier, and we want to make the reader's life easy and the reading easy. So we gather all of these pieces here and there, the hair of the dog and its tail and its clicking toenails and its nose and its ears, and we piece it all together until we have this wonderful soup du jour that is your story. So keep your thinking logical, sort through your information, try to determine what are the key points and put them in the order that you think is most important. Use transitions between thoughts. Use plenty of fresh quotes to back up the information that you're sharing with the reader. Then you want to add a nice ending to it. Give it a closing, even though it's an inverted pyramid. I usually save a good quote for the end and then put my boilerplate information at the end. Boilerplate is just information about my company, or who to contact, who to phone, a URL, etc. Maybe the website information. And then put that all together, proof it really well, read it out loud to yourself, and you have a wonderful concoction, not a Frankenstein, not a crazy piece of madness, but a really enjoyable, well-written, tightly written piece of writing that you can be proud of. So start piecing things together. Here, you can have this to start things out.